Hey team, I am back and I have been taking on this challenge, the Advice Generator app from Frontend Mentor, of course. So it looks like this over here. If you click on this, it will update with a new piece of advice. It updates a number. If we wait long enough, it will update again, and it just keeps working, okay? There is a 2-second delay because of the way the API works, but if I wait long enough, I can get a new quote, okay? So what I want to do today is look at how to get this data in, okay? We've been exploring in recent videos, a lot of CSS, doing that stuff. Now we're actually going to look at getting the data from somewhere and updating our UI, okay? And I'm going to show you 3 different ways to do this. The first is going to be some vanilla JavaScript. Then we're going to get into some framework stuff. And then we're going to finish with a web component just to see how each one is just a little bit different, okay? And the benefits and possible hiccups of using each, okay? So here we go. I am over here in my code, okay? I do not want to use main because main, if we look at it, git log --1 line, you'll notice that I still have my JavaScript here and I want to start from scratch. So what I'm going to do is grab this hash right here and go git checkout -b. It's going to be feature demo vanilla. Okay. And we're going to make it from that hash. Excellent. Okay. So from here, we have the code, which is this. So here's our HTML and our styles. Okay. If we're looking, not much magic to the HTML. It's kind of similar to what we've been doing with cards and whatnot. The styles very similar to how I've been structuring some of my other stuff. So we aren't going to lean too much into the CSS, but at the bottom of this, right before the closing body tag, I want a script tag, okay? So that we can do our JavaScript. I'm going to call it app.js, just like this, save it. And then over in the sidebar, add a new file, app.js. This is where our code is going to live, okay? At a high level, dragging this sideways so that we can see both the code and our script, okay? We want to get this block right here, okay? We don't actually care about the parent. We just want the content so that we can update this surgically, right? We don't want to be updating the whole thing, just this little piece, okay? So we do that. That's going to be content like this, and that's going to be document. Try that again. Document.query selector, and we get the parent. So that's advice content, okay? Right here, dot advice content. It's hard to type and talk at the same time, but that's okay. I'm going to duplicate that, and we're going to get the button. Now, I don't actually have a class on my button. It's right here. It just has the type, but I do have a class on the wrapper. So we can go way over to the end, change this to advice __ button, angle bracket, button, and that should do it, okay? From here, I want to fetch quote, okay? And this is where we're actually going to do most of the work. Now, this function, which, I mean, should be a function, so let's do that, okay? This function is going to do a fetch. So let's go and set that up. That's going to be fetch just like this because we do have access to that, and it takes a URL. Okay, that's you can see that up in the box right here. That URL is right here, advice slip JSON API, and in fact, it's the very first one. So if we click on this link to /advice, it will give us a random piece of advice. Plant a tree. That's good advice. We click it again. If you have the chance, take it. Okay, we wait a couple seconds, we click it again. If you have nothing to say, say nothing. Sounds logical, okay? But we do get the ID, we do get the advice, and we are going to use all of that. So copy this in right here. Could I make this function async await? Absolutely, okay? And if you know how to do that, feel free to do that. I'm just going to chain thens, okay? Because ultimately it's the same number of lines of code, whether it's async await or this. Actually, async await might actually be more because you need to try catch, okay? But the first thing that we do is we grab the JSON data, because on that response, there's a lot of extra stuff. The success, the status code, stuff like that. It's all on there. We just want the data, and that's hiding on this JSON method, okay? That returns another promise, so let's go do that. We're also going to do response. We should probably wrap this up, even though that's optional for the moment. And right here, we could do something, right? We have access to content, so we could go content.innerHTML and set that equal to something. Great. This is not where I want to live because I want to make it more flexible, okay? So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass this to a new function, which is render quote, okay? And on there, it's going to have two pieces of information. It's going to have response.slip.id and something else, okay? Response.slip.advice, okay? Both of those I got from right here. The whole thing is the response, then there's slip, and then inside of here is ID and advice, okay? So no magic, it's all in there. You just got to use it. This could actually be simplified a little bit. So if we wrap this this response argument in curly brackets and change it to slip, now we can get rid of response dot, okay? Makes it a little bit cleaner. We're doing a little destructuring, okay? Up here, we need that render quote. Should be a function again. We pass in ID and advice, okay? And we do the work. So here's where we use that content inner HTML that I was talking about, okay? We're going to do some interpolation here. So this is going to be a template literal, and we can actually copy this right from here because this is the inner HTML, okay? So paste it in and let's update it just a little bit so it's a little bit nicer. Now, 117, not anymore. It's going to be $curly brackets ID, okay? And then all of this block quote stuff, we get rid of everything between the tags. $curly brackets advice. Excellent, okay? Last thing we need before we can test this is a way to actually trigger it, because even though we captured the button, we didn't tell it to do anything, okay? So button.addEventListener, it's going to be a click event, and we pass it fetch quote. Moment of truth. Are you ready? Here we go. Back to the code. We refresh it. If I hit this, I get a new quote. Okay. And over here, a new quote, new quote. Now, one thing you'll notice that we haven't talked about is there seems to be a weird space going on here. Okay. And in fact, if we go and look at that, come on, don't do that. There it is. Okay. If we go and inspect that, you'll see that there is in fact a space. And part of this is because of how I've used these before and after pseudo elements. Okay. If I actually had control of this code and I turned off prettier, then I could back this out and it would get rid of that extra space. It's just one of those little things where the wrapping is causing it to add that extra space. Okay. But because every time I save, prettier does its thing and cleans up my code for me, that's not going to work. So what I recommend is make it a default. Okay. Right here, we can go and grab this stuff again. Okay. Mostly just the text, and then down here, paste it in and clean this up. So getting rid of everything except the number and setting this to const default quote ID equals 117. Could you put this in a string? Yes, you could. It does not matter this time around. Okay. But we are getting a number back from the API, so best to be consistent. Okay. Get rid of this tag. We don't need it anymore. Make this all one line just so it's nice and neat, and put it in quotes. Okay. So const default quote advice. Good. Now, where do we use these defaults? Well, right here, right at the top of this render quote function, we can set actionable defaults. So here's default quote ID, and right after advice, we go equals default quote advice. Okay. And then the last thing that we need to do is down here, we go render quote, right? With no arguments. Because we aren't supplying arguments, it means that our defaults will take over and it should act the way that we expect. Okay, so we refresh and now those spaces are gone like magic. Okay, so that part is taken care of. This still all works. We can still click around in here and it is brilliant. So what's the problem, right? What's the problem? Well, the problem is that even as short as this is, we are less than 25 lines of code, okay? But all of this stuff is in the global space, right? All of our variables are in the global space, which means that if we needed to duplicate this anywhere, it would be very, very hard for us, okay? If we wanted multiple advice slips in different places on the same page, just a bit of a pain in the butt. So this works, but it's not considered a best practice. Okay, we should encapsulate this somehow. Because it works, I'm going to commit it really fast. Git status, git add dot, git commit -m, and this is going to be a feature. Whoa, missed the T, but that's okay. So feature add JS. Okay, brilliant. Now I'm going to create a new branch just so that we have a way to compare these later. Okay. Normally I would recommend against creating a branch off of a branch, right? That feels very wrong to me. It's a good way to muddy your code in a hurry. I feel like it's always better to cut from either your development branch or your main branch or something like that. But I don't want to lose the JavaScript. I want to keep using that to copy and paste and make my life faster. So git checkout -b, doing it the wrong way. Don't do this in production. Again, it's just a bad habit. Okay. Always cut from your main or your development branch, whichever that is. Okay. Feature /demo. This is going to be Vue. Okay. Vue is a library. Okay. For making interactive interfaces, just like React, just like Svelte, just like all these other ones. Okay, there's a bunch out there. The nice thing about Vue is that we don't need a build tool in order to use this. Okay, we can actually click on install, takes you to this quick start guide, and then on the other side, on the right side, we see using Vue from CDN. Okay, we can copy that and bring it back to our code, and then right above our script, we paste that in. Excellent. Now, quick side note about this. We have not locked the dependency enough on this. So there's a chance that a minor update could break something. My advice is don't do it that way. Instead, go and figure out which version is actually there. So in this case, we have 3.5.13, right? And you see some comments and it's all completely unbundled. This is the development version. So instead, right behind here, since we can, let's go and add .prod. okay? And now it is all minified, okay? And we're doing that because we're adding a library, right? Since we're adding a library, it is going to be extra stuff. And all those extra spaces and returns and all of our very long variable names, that's all going to be downloaded by somebody. Make it small, make it the production bundle, and hopefully it stays fast. Excellent. So we have locked our dependencies completely. We're using the production bundle, and we are good to go. Switching back to our JavaScript code, okay? I'm going to comment this out. Down below here, I'm going to get something from Vue, okay? So right here, I'm going to go const app equals capital V Vue. Don't let it autocomplete. I've had that happen before. And right here, we create app, okay? That app takes an object, and you can do a few different things in here. There's a bunch. We only really need two today. One is data. Data is a method that returns an object, okay? So data is a method that returns an object. And then the other one that we'll use today is methods. And methods is an object. It feels weird to say that data is a method, methods is an object. Kind of curious, but let's take care of data first, okay? Right here, we have our defaults. We're going to grab this, copy it, paste it into that return inside of data, just like this. We can uncomment that. It is going to scream because, hey, it doesn't know what you're doing, and none of this belongs in an object. So let's go get rid of the const, okay? And then at the start of here, we're going to change this to, or at the end, we're going to change it to a semicolon, okay? And then we need some commas and some commas, and that should do it. Now, these names don't really work for me. We can shorten that. So right here, change it to a lowercase quote, okay? Because we are going to update these values. And the beauty of Vue and a lot of these frameworks is that when we update these stateful values, it will also update our markup, okay? So there's that. And we need to attach it, okay? We have app. So let's go and use that. App. On there is mount. And mount takes some kind of an ID, some kind of an element in your DOM, okay? In this case, I want app. So right over here, save that first. Right over here in the markup, if we scroll way up to article class advice, somewhere in there, you want to type ID equals app, okay? And with that, if we have this, I should be able to refresh this, and I get something that looks very similar, okay? And the reason it looks similar is because we haven't actually used any of that data. So jumping back in, we have quote ID. That should actually be right here. But the beauty of this is that we've told Vue that this whole container now belongs to it. So Vue is controlling this, which means that inside of here, instead of this number, we can use double curly braces and then quote ID, okay? And then with this block quote, we go and get rid of all of it, double curly braces, too many, and quote add vice, okay? Save it, go back, refresh. There it is. You'll notice that there's a bit of a flash while it's pulling some stuff in while it's setting up, right? But overall, it's pretty okay. We have not done anything with the button, so let's go do that. That's in our methods. And in fact, our method is this, right? Fetch quote. So we go and paste that right in, unlock it, get rid of fetch because, hey, it's a method, not a function, okay? Save it so it tidies, and we need to do something about this, okay? Because there is no render quote. That's something from the old days. We go here, and we put it on quote ID. Now we get access to this quote ID, and we set it equal to our slip ID. And then we do the same right here. This dot quote advice equals slip advice. Okay. So once we get the ID and the advice, we update. Sorry, once we get the slip ID and the slip advice, we update our data. And then because we've updated our data, Vue is also going to update our code. The catch here is that we need to use this somewhere. So let's go and do that on button. And it gives us I think they call them directives in Vue. Okay. So the @click right here, set it to fetch quote, right? We could put these on here. It's kind of messy, so leave them off. But @click equals fetch quote. When we click this button, it will trigger this bit of code, which will update our data, which will then update our markup. Let's go try it. Save these both. Refresh it. Click, and we get the thing. Okay. So that is number 2. And again, I think it's even less code than the previous one, right? We went from 22 lines. So this is 24 to 44. That's 20 lines. So already less code, especially if we delete those old lines. So what's the problem? Well, the problem is we had to download an entire library for one little thing. And to show you what that looks like, if I bring up my dev tools again and go to network, okay, hit refresh, you're going to see a couple things. One, vue.global.prod.js. If we scroll all the way over, it is 60 kilobytes. Okay. If it was not the production bundle, it would be 130 kilobytes. Okay. Whereas our app file is 1.2 kilobytes with comments. Like we still have a lot of comments in there. So if we cut those comments away, in theory, this would get even smaller. But this right here, 60 kilobytes, if all you're doing is using frameworks for one little component, that's probably a bad deal. Okay. If you're using Vue all over your site in a progressive enhancement way, the way that I just did, then it can be quite good, right? It can work quite well. So let's try it one more time. Okay. And for that, I'm going to go in here, check what we did. Yes. Git add dot git commit -m. This is, keep missing that E, but use Vue. Okay. Good. Git checkout feature demo vanilla. Okay. Git checkout. The reason that I'm going from vanilla again is I want the old code. Okay. Creating a fork off of a fork. It gets a little bit wordy. It's even hard to say. So let's always do it from only one branch. Okay. So git checkout -b feature. This is going to be web components. Okay. Web component. It's only one. Brilliant. Okay. Going back to our code, we're going to see that things are reset, right? We have our old code. We have our thing. Vue is gone. We are in good shape. So same thing again. We are going to comment this away. Okay. And over here, we need to update our markup. So I'm going to grab everything between the main tags and cut it to the clipboard. Down here, template, right there. I'm going to set an ID on that template to advice. Okay. And then paste it all in. So now we have a way to access that. If we were to look at the page right now, it would be empty, right? Because templates don't render. They're code that's meant to be used by something else. Okay. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to set up a web component. So down here, we are going to add in advice generator. Okay. And if I expand that, you're going to see two things. One, it adds a closing tag. And two, there's a dash in here. And we need both of those. Okay. So the dash is how we know that we are not using a default HTML tag. That is a requirement by the spec, that we always have at least one dash. As many as you want, but at least one, okay? And then because of how this works, we always need a closing tag. So even if you add web components to, say, React, right? React is big on self-closing tags. You still need this actual closing tag. Okay, so be aware, you need both of these. Now with that in place, we can go over here and add our class. Capital A, advice generator. Okay, extends HTML element. Brilliant. Okay, when we're doing it from scratch, we always extend from HTML element. Could you extend from something else? I don't think so. I don't think the spec allows for that. So just do it this way, okay? Inside of there, we should add a constructor. And that constructor should activate super, not supper, super. Brilliant, okay? So nothing should really happen because we haven't actually built anything yet. But we can start to add in some stuff. For instance, we're going to need a property, not a variable, but a property named content, and a property called button. Okay. And because we're doing this, we are also going to grab our very handy defaults. So right here, and uncomment the lot, get rid of both of these consts. Oh, it's weird that it didn't unlock that last one. That's okay. There we go. All good. So we have those, which means that now we can start to do stuff, okay? We won't do anything with these right away, but we will do stuff with this template tag, okay? So first, we grab the template. It is document.querySelector, and we use add vice, okay? That's what we called it. Now we need to use that template, so we grab this content, okay, which is different. This right here is different than this property. This one's a const inside of this method. This one is a property inside of this class, okay? Again, naming things is hard, so change the name if that's not easy, okay? Template dot content again. So on the template, there is a content property itself, and that gives you the contents of the template tag. So everything from article to closing article, okay? We never want to operate on that directly. So every single time you want to clone node, okay? And set your variable to true. Set your argument to true. If you don't set it to true or you forget it, clone node will only grab the article tags. It won't grab anything else in between, okay? True grabs the entire tree. And that's what we want here. We want it all. So with that in mind, we can go this dot append child content. Okay. Now, if we go back here, we should see, oh, we won't see anything because I forgot the most important step, which is to tell JavaScript that we've created a thing, right? So you do that with custom elements, define, and the first argument is right here. We grab our tag name in quotes, and our second one is our class, advice generator, capital A. Excellent. Now we have something, okay? We've taken that template, we've put it in here. We haven't done anything else other than doing what we were already doing, okay? But at this point, we can start to update stuff. So we need to, again, get the content and get the button, okay? Let's do that. Whole lot of copy and paste coming up. We're going to grab these two things. So copy this, and right down here, we add a new method. This one, connected callback. This is one of the lifecycle methods included with web components. So you must call it connected callback, typed like this with a capital C in the middle, okay? Inside of there, we can paste this code, unlock it, and clean it up. So const button, no. Right here, we can grab both these and go this dot content, okay, this dot button. And that way we have these as global parameters inside of, sorry, not global, but localized to our class, okay? So we have access to those. This is not right, okay? So it's no longer document, it is this. And in the case of this inside of the class, this refers to the advice-generator element, okay? So query works if we need to do this with event listeners, it works, right? Lots of good stuff going on here, but we need to do that. So we select based on this element, okay? Moving on, a little bit more copy and paste. We can grab the, well, both of these actually. We're going to use them both. Bring them down so we have our event listener and our initial render, okay? So again, it should be this dot button add event listener and this dot fetch quote, which we haven't made yet. And then this dot render quote, which we haven't made yet, okay? Copy and paste again. Let's go and copy those functions. So both of the functions, the render quote, the fetch quote, copy them, bring them right down under connected callback, uncomment, get rid of fetch, or get rid of function, sorry, on both of them. Done, okay? There are some things that we need to do to clean this up. For instance, right here, it's not default quote ID, it is this dot default quote ID, this dot default quote advice, this dot content inner HTML, okay? Lots of different stuff. Again, with fetch, right? This dot render quote, because it's inside of here. So everything starts to clean up. Now, this is not going to work. I mean, it should. If we look at it, it'll clean up that spacing, right? But if we click on the button, we are not going to see anything. And the reason for that is this dot render quote is not a function, okay? And this is an important gotcha right here, okay? So let's take a quick look. The question becomes, when I trigger this, when I click on the button and I send to fetch quote, yes, it fires the quote. And then down here, this dot render quote. Well, what is this right here? Okay, we know what this is up here, but inside of this method, when we call it off of this click event, what is this? And the answer is, it's the button, right? Any function, any method call inside of these event handlers passes the element as the this. Okay, so if I console logged this inside of fetch quote, we would get the button. We don't want the button, we want all of everything else. So right here, this dot fetch quote dot bind this, okay? Happens all the time, all the time. You will click on something or try to move something, and it'll say that method doesn't exist. And it's because you need to use bind inside of here, okay? Now, back to it. We can refresh this, click it, and now it works, okay? Now, at some point, we're going to see a place. Where is it hiding? It is playing games. So we might see it in a second here. Benefits. Let's talk about the benefits. On the one hand, I could package this up. If I moved this template into here as a render method, maybe. So I move that code into code and I use it that way. Then I could pass this JavaScript file around to any project, and immediately, just by importing it here and using the tag, I could immediately get this advice generator on any project. So very easy to port and share around, okay? The other benefit is that it is quite a bit less code. It is more code than our beginning code, for sure. But compared to our Vue code, it's still pretty small. So we can see that right here. Go to network, hit refresh, and app.js is 1.8. Remembering that probably a good third of the text in that file is commented out. Okay, so 1.8 is still pretty small, and I would be happy with that. Okay, so here we are. We've done it, right? We should actually commit. Git status, git add dot, git commit -m. Oh, you know what? I don't want to do this yet. I'm gonna get rid of this, okay? Because I wanted to show you one more thing. I've been talking about reusing code, right? So right here, I have duplicated that. I haven't done anything else. I've just duplicated it. And if I hit save and go back, now when I hit refresh, I get 2. And the cool thing here is, even though they look the same, I can click this. Oh, there's that bug. Okay, we'll talk about that in a second. And I can click this, and I get different quotes. They work independently. They are completely separated, with the exception of the styles. Okay, so they will work on their own. You'll notice that our sizing is breaking. That's what I was trying to hint at before. And that's because our article tag is now actually right here instead of being right in the main tag right here, okay? So we need to sort that out really fast. And the way that you do that is by creating a new style right here after button. I'm going to call it advice generator. So it is the tag itself, and just set width to 100%, okay? Now if I refresh this and go and find one of those tiny ones, let's go see. Somewhere down here. Oh, see, that happened because I hit it too fast. So if you're within 2 seconds, you're going to get the same value, but we can click that, count to 2, or talk through it, get a little bit of a different one. Again, just waiting a few seconds. Where is something? And now I'm not going to be able to find a short quote, but there it is, right? If we hadn't done that 100%, this box would be shrinking down. So that fixes it. And at this point now we can now we can commit, okay? So git add dot, git commit -m, feature add web component, okay? Brilliant. So let's go back now that we've done this. And part of the reason that I did this was so that we have access to this right here inside of VS Code. I can very quickly switch. I had some other branches before, but demo vanilla, okay? And it switches to this branch. Now we started off with some basic code, nothing fancy, but it does get the job done. And here's the deal, okay? Depending on where you are in your journey, if it works, you win, okay? And I'm here to tell you, and I heard this quote from someone else a while back. So actually, I think I heard it from Andy Bell again. I keep quoting Andy Bell, but if it works, you win, which means that the code doesn't have to be like super clever or anything like that. It can just work and you can get on with your life. Okay. And that's what we did with this first example. It's not fancy. It's not super extensible, right? It's not totally future proof, but it does work. Okay. Then we went to the other extreme. We went to our Vue example, and Vue, there it is. Took a second to update, but Vue allows us to do very reactive programming. React, Solid, Svelte, all those different frameworks, they all work to make your life easier. The problem with that is it comes with an expense, right? And that expense is a download. It is, you are punishing the client for your ease of development. Okay. So if you're doing a small project, I'm going to recommend against this. If it's a large project where you're doing a lot of different stuff on the page, then yeah, absolutely use those frameworks. Make your life easier, because that one-time download is going to make things so much better for everyone. Okay. But for a one-off, this was as simple as it is. It added an extra 60 kilobytes to our code. Okay. And some of the frameworks, not naming any of them, but some of the frameworks are even bigger than that. Okay. The nice thing about Vue here is that we did not need a build tool. Okay. We could just import it from a CDN and use it, which is really, really elegant, really, really sharp, right? Especially if you're just prototyping like this or playing around. It's a really nice way to get into the code and have a go of it, okay? But because of that 60 kilobytes, we reviewed it. We went a different way with our web component. And yeah, our web component, it does need a little bit of extra code because of the constructor, because of the connected callback, because of how we organize this code. It does make it a little bit more, but pretty easy, okay? Pretty easy to do. And the nice thing here is that if we set it up right, each of these tags works independent of themselves, okay? So clicking on one does not change the other, which is really, really nice. That's it. 3 different ways: plain vanilla JS, a little bit of framework stuff with Vue, and of course a web component, which I think is pretty cool. That's just me. Maybe not you, right? If you don't think that's cool, please comment, right? Tell me what surprised you, what you found interesting, what you liked, what you didn't like, all of it, okay? That way I can keep that conversation going and find out what you actually like, right? That's important to me. So until next time, right? This is the end of this. Definitely do that thing, like, subscribe, all that cool stuff, and I will see you in the next one.